this morning. Okay, so we are going to continue from where we stop. Okay, let's hold on for a while. We're going to try to continue from. We're going to try to continue from where we stop. Okay, so that we're going to do this morning. We're going to try to continue where we stop. So we're still on that material. Study guide on the gospel of Christ. We're still on that material. Study guide on the gospel of Christ. We're seeing that on that material. Study guide on the gospel of Christ, chapter 18. All right. Study guide on the Gospel of Christ, chapter 18. All right, so I'm just waiting up to open up here. Okay, chapter 18 of our material, study guide on the Gospel of Christ. Now, in that chapter 18, we have the biblical examples of defense of the gospel. We have the biblical example. We have the biblical example of defense of the gospel. We started treating about that for some time now. Okay, started treating about that for some time now. Are you hearing me now? Good. So, and we treated Peter and John, okay, as an example. We treated Peter and John as an example before the Sanhedrin as an example. Then also treated the apostle before the Sanhedrin as an example. They also treated about Stephen, okay, as an example before the world, before the Sanhedrin. Are you getting it now? Good. So these are things we treated. So now we're going to continue from Paul. These are men. These are examples of men that hazard their life because of what? Because of Christ, for the defense of what? Of the gospel. Are you getting it now? So we're going to look at quickly. We're going to look at Paul because we're going to look at Paul quickly this morning for understanding sake. All right. So in the aspect of Paul, we start from his arrest. Okay, how he was arrested. We're going to start from that place. How he was what arrested. Okay, so Paul went for purification in the temple. All right, and then was instructed by James and the brethren to go for purification to purify himself. Okay, so it took, I think, about 4 men. Read it, Acts chapter 21, if I'm not mistaken. In Acts chapter 21, you will see it in that place. All right, so and then it took, I think, about 4 men for the purification. All right, at the end of the word, I'm cutting it short because of time. At the end of what? At the end of the purification, which is the 7th day. All right, the 7th day, those Jews that were in Asia, Paul did most of the ministry in Asia. All right, so and those Jews in the Asia, all right, they saw Paul, all right, in the temple with some certain men. So they caused the crowd against him. And Paul was beaten. He was beaten. And they were even having in mind to kill him before the chief captain and the soldier came and took Paul away from them and bound Paul with chain. We will see it. I just let me give you a few one for you to have understanding. You get what I'm saying now? So Paul was arrested, and in the course of his arrest, he defended the gospel. He showed to them, it was telling them about his conversion, and he defended the gospel in that part. So what we're trying to bring on these men here is that they hazard their life because of the gospel. Are you getting it now? They hazard their life because of the gospel, and they also defended the gospel. I get it now. They weren't criminals. They weren't involved into crime or anything. No, but they were not into crime or anything. You get what I'm saying? Now, the purpose of it was because of what? Of the gospel. Are you getting? So we are looking at these men for understanding, so that we can learn from them using the scripture to learn from them. Let's see now Paul's arrest. Look at Paul's arrest. Let's look at it quickly so that you have that understanding. Remember, I told you that he was instructed by James and the elders or thereabout, the elders and the brethren or thereabout. Read it and see if I'm correct. They're instructed by James and the elders and also the brethren. Find out if I'm correct. If you read upwards in that Acts chapter 21, you will see it in that word, in that place. Are you getting it now? So then when he was doing the purification, the 7th day would make it the end of the purification. That was when this thing happened. All right, because the Jews in Asia has already been knowing of what? Of Paul, because to them they said Paul is preaching against the custom of what? Of the Jews. All right, telling the Gentile not to be circumcised or not to follow the custom of the Jews. So they were annoyed. So those Jews in Asia, they came to Jerusalem at that time. All right. So, and they raised up the people against what? Against Paul. Let's see it and see where it goes there. Acts chapter 21, verse 27. Please, on your own, you can start from verse 1 so that you get it clear. So, in the case of study in this form, I tried my possible best to be able to do a little what do you call it? Little bit of it, okay? Cutting this short in righteousness. I'm getting it now. So that's what I try to do here. But you must get it clear that we are talking about the biblical examples of defense of the gospel. Men that hazard their life because of the gospel. I get it now. And they defended the gospel in the course of what? Of their trials and the course of their persecution. They defended what? The gospel. Let's see, Acts chapter 21, verse 27 to 40. And when the 7 days were almost ended, the Jews which were of Asia, like I told you, the 7 day was ended. The Jews of what? Asia, when they saw him in the temple, stir up all the people and lay hands on him. You see it now? Because why? Because most ministry of Paul was mostly on Asia. So they have been seeing Paul bringing the message to what? Message to Asia. All right? Okay, and then look at what they said. When they stir up the people, they lay hands on him, verse 20, crying out, Men of Israel, help. This is the man that teacheth all men everywhere against the people and the law and this place. And further brought Greek also into the temple and has polluted this holy place. You see that? You see, those Jews in Asia that saw him in the temple, they heard him and they screamed out. They called on the crowd against what? Paul, by saying that look at see this man. This man is the one that told everyone not to what do you call it again? Not to obey the law, and also brought in what? The Greek. Greek is Gentile now. Understand what? Brought the Greek into what? Into the temple. So that makes them, all right. So when they shouted that way, and they also said inclusive. They also said that what? Paul has polluted what? The temple by bringing those people, those Greek, into what? In the temple. Now, verse 29. For they have seen before with him in the city of what? Trophimus and Trophimus and Ephesians, whom they suppose that Paul has brought into the temple. Verse 30. And all the city was moved, and the people ran together, and they took Paul and drew him out of the temple, and forthwith the door were shut. Are you getting it now? He said, and as they went about to kill him, tidings came unto the chief captain of the band that all Jerusalem was in uproar. 32, who immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down unto them. I get it now. And when they saw the chief captain and soldier, they left beating of what? Paul. I get it now. So when those Jews heard Paul and they screamed out, and the people came out against Paul and they beat Paul, they're about to kill him. Then the chief captain, okay, of the soldier and the soldier came, and when they saw the chief captain and the soldier, they left Paul. Understand point? Because they have started beating him already. They left Paul. Okay? Understand point? Look at what happened in 33. Then the chief captain came and took him and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains and demanded who he was and what he has done. 34. And some cried one thing, some another among the multitude. And when he could not know the sanctity for the torment, he commanded tumult. He commanded them to be carried. He commanded him to be carried into the castle. 35. And when he came upon the stairs, so it was that he was born of what? Born of what? Born of what? The soldiers, for the violence of what? Of the people. 36. For the multitude of the people followed after, crying, away with him. 37. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, Can thou speak Greek? So he now told the chief captain, he told the chief captain, he said, Can I speak to you? But he was speaking in Greek. I'm getting down again. Look at what they assumed. The chief captain assumed, verse 38. He said, Are not thou the Egyptians, which before this day made us an uproar and lead us out into the wilderness, 4,000 men that were murderers? That was what the chief captain was thinking. They were thinking that Paul was one of the revolutionists. was even Paul was a revolutionist, okay, that drew crowd. All right, okay. Now 39, that drew crowd. There's a historical part of it in that aspect. There was an revolutionist that drew crowd. Okay, I understand. So he was thinking that Paul was that particular person. 39, but Paul said, "I am a man." Which am a Jews of Tarsus, now to introduce himself now, a city in Cilicia, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no main city, no main city. I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. Verse 14. And when he has given him license, Paul stood on the stair and beckoned word on the beckoned word with his hand. I'm sorry, I beckoned word on his hand unto the people. And when there was much a great silence, he spoke unto them in the Hebrew tongue, saying, now let's see what Paul now said by the defense of word of the gospel. Are you getting it now? You see the next chapter now. That chapter 22, verse 1 to word 24. I'm just showing you all these things for you to have word understanding, so that you know that word. We that are believers, we can hazard our life because of the word of the gospel and also defend word the gospel. Let's see what Paul now said, because this time around, Paul have told the world, the chief captain, okay? He have told the chief captain that word he wants to talk with the people, right? He have told the chief captain that he wants to speak to the people. I get it now. So now chief captain giving audience to speak to the people. And now he's using Hebrew to speaking Hebrew to the people. See what he said in verse 1 or chapter 22, verse 1. He said, men, brethren, and father, hear ye my defense. You see what he said? That's where I got it, all those things from. Remember, I told you Philippians chapter 1 the other time, I got it from that place. And then if you see this one, you also see it in what? In that place. I got it from that place. He said, hear my word, my defense. Defense. What's the defense? Which I made now unto you. Verse 2. And when they heard that he spake in word, in Hebrew tongue to them, they kept word, more silent. More silent, as he said. Verse 3. I am very a man, which am a Jew. Now introducing himself now. Born in what? In Tarsus. City it was Cilicia, yet brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, taught according to the perfect word, perfect manner of the law of the Father. And I said, was zealous toward God as ye all are this word. They introduced himself that he is a Jew, see where he came from, and just like that. I also told them that what people are doing now, zealous about the law. I was once like that, zealous about the law. Now I was telling them about his conversion, because his conversion is a part of the defense of the gospel. Listen to this: our conversion is a part of the defense of the gospel. I get what I'm saying now. Our conversion, okay, as believers, is a part of of the defense of the gospel. Look at what he said. He continued by telling them that he's also zealous like them before. Now, see what he said. He said, and I persecuted, verse 4, and I persecuted this way unto death, binding and delivering into prisons, both men and women. Verse 5, as also the high priest doeth bear me witness, and all the estate of the elders, from whom also I received letter unto the brethren, and I went to Damascus to bring them which were they are bound unto Jerusalem for to be punished. Verse 6. And it came to pass that as I made my journey and I was come near to Damascus, about noon, suddenly there shone from heaven a great light round about me. Verse 7. And I fell onto the ground, and I heard a voice saying unto me, Saul, why persecuted thou me? Verse 8. And I answered, Who art thou, Lord? And he said unto me, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom thou wert persecuted. Why is he trying to let them know? He's trying to let them know about his word, his conversion. Verse 9. And they that were with me saw indeed the light and were afraid, but they heard not the voice of him that speaketh to me. Verse 10. And I said, What shall I do, Lord? And his Lord said unto me, Arise and go into Damascus, and it shall be told thee of all things which are appointed for thee to do. Verse 11. And when I could not see for the glory of that light, being led by the hand of all them that were with me, I came unto Damascus. So what I'm going to do now is that you're going to read the rest of yourself. I'm getting that you're going to read the rest of yourself. You understand? But what I'm trying to bring here is that trying to show to you that men that answer their life because of Christ. Okay? What I'm trying to show you that men that hazard their life because of Christ. Okay? And they defended the gospel in their trials, in their persecution. They defend what? The gospel. They were not defending themselves, they were defending the gospel. Now, in the case of Paul, we are seeing that in his arrest, what did he do? He showed to them, he told them how he was converted. He told them that just like these people are zealous about the law to kill him now. Also, he did a lot of things to take those people that believe in Christ from the way. He killed some, he banned some, he brought some. Okay, will I say kill some? Let me do a correction on that. Will I say kill some? We can just say that. Let me quickly see if I'm correct in that aspect where they say, okay, he said, let me see, and I persecuted this way unto the death. Okay, yes. That's he persecuted, he killed some. That's make persecuted unto what? Unto death by bringing them. Like Stephen, he was also the ringleader that led to the death of what? Of Stephen. All right. He banned some, he brought some to what? He banned some, he brought some to what? To Jerusalem. You understand? They imprisoned many of them, even while they were killing, he was one screaming and shouting that they should put those people to what? To death. Now, Paul said all these things. He was letting them know that what? In the process of doing all this, Jesus appeared toward to him on his way toward Damascus. Get it now? That's the defense of what? Of the gospel. I guess that's the defense of what? The gospel. It said Jesus appeared to him on the way toward to Damascus. He was letting them know these things. So in his arrest, I get it now. In the arrest of Paul, Paul defended what? The gospel. Let's quickly look at the next one if I'm able to give them one. I don't know if I can, but let me just see if I finish up that because let's look at now. Let's look at the next one now. Paul before the Sanhedrin or the Jewish council. You see now. Paul now before what? The Sanhedrin. Get the spelling correct. Sanhedrin or Jewish what? Council. Let's see it now. Okay, now this, remember I told you that, remember according to his arrest, okay, the chief what? The chief captain and the soldier came and arrested Paul. Okay, they took him to the castle. They bound him with chain. They took him to the castle. Okay, now this chief, what do you call it? Chief captain wanted to know what has this man. All right, they wanted to know what has this man done. So you have to bring them to what? To the Sanhedrin. I beg your pardon, sorry, beg your pardon. You have to bring him, which is Paul. You have to bring him to what? To the Sanhedrin. He brought Paul to what? To the Sanhedrin. Are you getting it now? He wants to know what has this man done? Okay, now fine. Judge him according to what? Your law. I get it. That was what the chief captain and the soldier, understand? The chief captain of the soldier said according to the law. Now he brought him before them. Let's see what happened in that place. Okay, let's see. Chapter 22, verse 30. It said, on the morrow, because he could have known the sentence wherefore he was accused of the Jews, he loosed him from the span and commanded the chief priest and all their council to appear and brought Paul down and set it before them. You see, the captain wanted to know, okay, because remember we read that in chapter 21. He said, you know that revelation is in the standpoint. Then Paul said, no, introducing himself. This one was now wondering what is actually happening. That's what the chief captain was after. What's actually happening? What has this man done? So he wants to know. I get it now. Because when Paul told him that I want to speak to the people, Paul did not speak Greek. He spoke Hebrew. And I believe the chief captain didn't understand what Paul was communicating to the people. Now, in chapter what? In chapter 20, verse 30, the chief captain want to know why did they want to kill this man? What has he done? Okay, fine, no problem. Let us, okay, now you people have a council which is called the Sanhedrin or the Jewish council. Okay, now let the Jewish council now judge him. Let's see what this man have done so that he will know what Paul has done. I getting it now. So now Paul is now before the Sanhedrin now. I getting it now. Let's see chapter 23, verse 1 to 11. Look at it. Verse 1. And Paul earnestly beholding the council said, men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before God unto this day. See what Paul now said. He said, I believe in all, when he saw the council, I believe in all good conscience to these days. Verse 2. And the chief And the high priest, I beg pardon, and the high priest Ananias commanded them that stood by him to smite him on the mouth. So when Paul said that word, I've lived honestly. Okay, I've lived what? I've lived with a good conscience, I beg pardon, honestly, please. I've lived in what? In all good conscience before God until the when Paul said that word, the high priest now commanded someone that was close to Paul. He said, smite him on his mouth. And he tried to shut up his mouth. And they smite Paul on his mouth. Let's see what Paul now said. What Paul now did. Good. You understand my point? Verse 3. Then said Paul unto him, God smite thee, that white word, for thou seated to judge me after the law, and commanded me to be smitten contrary to the law. See what Paul has said. Paul said, you are a white word. You are telling them to judge me according to the law, and you tell them to smite my face. You understand my point? According to the law. Now look at what verse 4. And they that stood by said, revealest thou God's high priest? They now told that who you are talking against now is the high priest. See, that's right. Then said Paul, I was not, brethren, that he was the high priest, for it is written, thou shalt not speak evil of the ruler of the people. See what now Paul said. Paul now said, I didn't know it was the high priest. You understand? When even it is written that you should not speak, you should not speak against what? I speak evil of the word of the high priest. You see it now. In the midst of the defense of the gospel, see what Paul said. Now, verse 6. And when Paul perceived that one part was Sadducee and the other Pharisee, he cried hard in the council, men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee, of the hope and the resurrection of the dead, and called in question. Look at what Paul did. Paul noticed that this group of people is made up of what? Of the Pharisee. And the Pharisee believe in resurrection, they believe in angel, they believe in spirit. I get it now. Then the Sadducees do not believe in resurrection, they don't believe in angelic visitation, the resurrection is speaking to you, they don't believe in those things. When Paul noticed that what this sign is made up of what? Was made up of what? When he noticed that this sign is made up of what? These two groups, he said, I'm a Pharisee. Really? He was a Pharisee. You see, he was a Pharisee. So I'm a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee, the hope of what? The hope and resurrection of the dead. I'm called in question. See, that's the reason why they called him. Example, because of the word. He's a Pharisee. The reason why they call on him is because of the hope and resurrection of the dead. I'm calling what? In question. Now look at what I said. Look at what happened. Verse 7. And when he had so said, there arose a word dissension between the Pharisee and the Sadducee. There was now division among them. Let's get it now. And the multitude were divided. Verse 8. For Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, neither angel nor spirit, but the Pharisees confess both. Verse 9. And there arose a great cry, and the scribes that were of the Pharisee part arose and strove, saying, we find no evil in this man. You see, those ones that were the Pharisees said they did not find any evil in this man. If a spirit or an angel has spoken to him, let us not fight against God. Because that's what the Pharisees believe. The Pharisees believe that angel can come around and speak to someone. The spirit can come around and speak to someone. And they also believe that the resurrection of the dead. But the Sadducees do not believe that. Are you getting what I'm saying? They do not believe that. So Paul now used that as a way to checkmate the two groups. Are you getting what I'm saying now? So there was not division among all the two groups. Now let's see what happened there. Okay, and then he said, all right, let me quickly say it. And when there was a great dissension, the chief captain, fearing lest Paul should be pulled in pieces of them, commanded the soldier to go down and to take him by force from among them and bring him into the castle. Verse 11. And the night followed, the Lord stood by him and said, be of good cheer, Paul, for as thou hast testified of me in Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also at what? At Rome. See, all these things went through all of them. Get it now? Now, because of time, okay, look at it now. Okay, can I quickly finish this one? Let me put this one to read. Now, see that the Jews could not be able to handle. The Jews could not be able to settle, in other words, judge the case or judge Paul according to the law. They have to bring it to what? To the Roman Empire or Roman rulers. Let me put it that way. They have to bring it to the Roman rulers. All right? And that's where you now have the word in your material. In the material there, you now have the word Paul's trial before Felix, the word governor. I get it now. Since they could not handle it, the Jewish council could not handle it, they have to bring it to the governor. And the governor at that time was called Felix. You see, the governor at that time was called Felix. They could not handle the case. They have to bring it to the governor. Let's see quickly. We have what? Paul. Paul what? Trial before Felix. The word governor. I get it now. So they have to bring it to what? They have to bring it to what? The governor. I get it now. Let's see what happened. They have to bring it to the governor. Let's see chapter 24 of Acts. I'm just showing you all these things so that you begin to have understanding. They could not handle it. They have to bring it to what? To the governor. See? That's it. So you could see that word is not really, it's not really about the law. It's about something different from the law. Let me quickly say that. If it was about the law, they would have judged accurately to the law, using the law. But not only because of the law, but because anyone that brings the gospel to them, telling people that Jesus died and resurrected must be taken, must be killed. And Paul, because Paul was known as someone in the past against those that preach the gospel. How come now he's just turned around overnight and become preaching the gospel in that state? So he need to be killed. That's what's happening. Again, that is not about the law. It's not about the law. It's not about Paul, whatever. They cannot judge the law because something is not actually the law. It is because their intention is to kill him. Now, chapter 24. Let me quickly read chapter 24 and round up with that one. Then maybe next week we'll keep look at that. Chapter 24. And then after 5 days, Ananias the high priest descended, you see, with the elders and with certain word orator, named word Titalos, who informed the governor against Paul. So they have to bring somebody, an orator, okay, called what? Titalos, so that he will speak. Okay, who informed against Paul. Now, verse 5. And when he was called for, Titalos began to accuse him, saying, seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and that very word deeds are done unto the nation by their providence. Verse 3. And we accept it always and in all places, most noble fellows, and with all thanksgiving. Now how you talk to a governor in terms of like excellency. The people do it today now. The word about excellency, say some words before they now bring out the case. Now, notwithstanding that I be not far tedious unto thee, I pray thee that thou wouldest bear us of thy clemency a few words. Verse 5. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, and a mover of seduction among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the word Nazareth. You see what the now said? You see what happens there? Now, according to the orator they brought, the Jews brought an orator to brought. The orator have said those words that you do say to the excellency. Because it comes. Then I said the purpose why we are here is because of this pestilent, call it. You say Paul is a pestilent fellow, a mover of seduction among all the Jews throughout the world. It's a ringing out a set called Nazarene. See, they now say that word. Who also have gone about to profane the word. We said he defied the temple. Now, if he defied the temple, is it the governor that actually going to talk about that? What concern the governor will define the temple? Now you will see in most times the gospel. That they want to kill him. They want to kill Paul. That's the intention. Not leave anything. Number 6. Who have gone about to profane the temple? Why did you not want to do it? Could not do it, and they put to the governor, whom we took and would have judged according to our law. The chief thing, Lias came upon us, and we great value took away out of our hand. Verse 8, commanding his accuser to come unto thee, examine of whom thyself, make us what? Take knowledge of all these things, wherefore we accuse him. And the Jews also asserted, saying that these things were so. Verse 10. Then Paul, after that, the governor beckoned unto him to speak, answer, for as much I know that has been of many years. Now, the only have said this on, they have to call the governor fully answer, because that thou understand that I may understand that since I went up to Jerusalem for to worship. Verse 12. And they never found me in the temple disputing with any man. Because accusation, he went to the temple. There's an accusation that he went to the temple to defend the temple. And Paul said, they knew quite that when I got to the temple, I did not dispute any man. Neither raising up people,